Hey guys, it's BlizzConBoy here, and we got another video on cut MGS weapons, so without further ado, let's get right on into it. Now if you go back and you watch the Tokyo Game Show footage from 2003, promotional footage for Snake Eater includes a little skit, mimicking or mocking, or at least referencing, Grand Theft Auto Vice City and its overwhelming popularity. There will be a point where Snake stops a Russian guard and tries to rob him off of one of the iconic motorcycles with a little, I don't know what they're called, but caskets attached to it, and he tries to take it from him. And if you look at this scene, you'll see mounted to that little extra seat on the side there, a PKM. Now, we all love the M63 in Snake Eater. In fact, I'd say it's one of the most fun and interestingly implemented LMGs in any video game. However, maybe this wasn't the original LMG we were meant to use. Maybe we were meant to get our hands on the PKM. Or maybe it was meant to just be something that was mounted onto vehicles. Maybe in the section where we escape Groznygrad with Eva, we were supposed to have it be a little bit more like Metal Gear Solid 1 in the sense where in that escape with Meryl, you're using the M60 mounted onto the truck, and here you might have been using the PKM. How it would be implemented is anyone's guess, but if there's one thing that's for sure is that this gun was originally supposed to show up in the game, at the very least, on these motorcycle type enemies. Next up, we have something that I found while scrolling through different forums. According to Reddit user Rushi Akimoya, originally, Quiet's enhanced sniper rifle that we see in Phantom Pain and we can get for her upgraded was supposed to be usable in Ground Zeroes. Now, Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain were in development at the same time. In fact, they were supposed to release together initially. However, as we all know, they got released separately. That being said, the weapons that show up in Phantom Pain were probably tested and played around with in the Ground Zeroes sandbox. Now, if we look at all the unlockable weapons in Ground Zeroes, we see that the higher rank you get, the more powerful weapon you get. And I don't think it's too bold to say that Quiet's suppressed enhanced sniper rifle with that crazy scope, suppressor, high damage probably would have broken the smaller sandbox of Ground Zeroes. You see, in open world games where it's easy for the enemies to engage you at long distances with other snipers or mortars or vehicles, helicopters, it's a little bit more balanced to have suppressed sniper rifles, as in some cases, a long distance approach while remaining under cover is what you need to succeed. However, in a game like Ground Zeroes, where everything is a lot smaller scale and the enemies don't really have a lot of methods for engaging you at long distances, a suppressed sniper could very well break the entire game. So that's my personal theory as to why it was removed, but maybe they removed it just because they wanted to save that kind of surprise for the Phantom Pain or not really show anything to do with Quiet, because everything was really hush-hush and we were really tearing at all the trailers that came out trying to figure out what was going on in Phantom Pain back in the day, so maybe this was part of just keeping the mystery alive. Either way, it's cool to know that there was a possibility that we would have gotten our hands on this unique looking gun in Ground Zeroes. If we turn our attention back to TGS 2003, the Snake Eater promotional footage, we can see in this footage that Snake, for the majority of the gameplay, is using his 1911. However, it's not the custom 1911 that we end up using in Snake Eater. It's a much more plain-looking, plain black, suppressed pistol. And the reason I'm going to count this as a cut weapon is because it behaves in a way that's much different than the 1911 that we got, implying that originally there were different ideas in mind for what a pistol in Snake Eater should play like. This 1911 seems a lot more powerful, taking down regular enemies in just a couple of shots. You can hip-fire it, similarly to the M9 in Metal Gear Solid 2, or how, like in Snake Eater, if you're using an assault rifle, you can either fire it from the hip in first person, or you can aim down the sights. It looks like at some point we were also going to have this option with pistols in the game. Now, it still to a certain extent makes its way into the final Snake Eater. When you first drop back into the Russian wilderness after the Virtuous mission, Snake will start with a stock 1911, nothing really too special about it. You can't suppress it, you don't even really get to use it against any enemies because as soon as you go past a certain point, the boss just tears it apart. So the gun still kind of makes it into the game, but at least the model does, but not in a way that we actually get to use it. Not in a way that we get to experience the intended gun that was shown off in these trailers so much earlier on. Coming up next, we have a gun cut from one of my favorite games in the series. Now, Metal Gear Solid 2 for the most part has a pretty standout sandbox. Things are balanced quite nicely. But there's one weapon that if you've watched my videos before, you know I really don't like, and that would be the included grenade launcher. I feel like there's no real place for this weapon and too few uses to justify its existence in the sandbox, and if there's a substitute that I would put for this gun, it would be a decent shotgun. Well, looking at some early concept art from Yoji Shinkawa, we can see a photo of Raiden holding a Benelli M4, so perhaps this was the original intention. Metal Gear Solid 2 was the first time in the series we really saw standard type enemies using shotguns, as when you get an alert status, sometimes Gurlukovich soldiers will come in using a pump action Spaz 12. That can be a pretty quick death sentence to the player playing on higher difficulties. Now later on in Snake Eater, we ended up getting the M37, which is one of the best balanced shotguns in a game of all time in my humble opinion. Maybe a lot of the elements that we see here with the M37 were supposed to originally be used with the Benelli M4. Maybe it was supposed to be a much stronger, faster version of what we got. And that's something that I really want to point out. A semi-auto shotgun within Metal Gear could become incredibly overpowered, especially if it had the features of the M37 in terms of damage and the way that you could take out groups of enemies. With this weapon, you could pretty much negate an entire alert phase by just sitting in a room and taking on the guards that come at you. So maybe it was going to be weaker. Maybe it was supposed to be a late game unlock for that final fight against the Tengu. I could totally see it acting more like a power weapon in the vein of the sword or the late game M4. But yeah, I always wanted to see a good shotgun in Metal Gear Solid 2, and I feel like that would have filled the role that the grenade launcher was trying to fill towards the end of the game, and maybe that was the intention. Now I'm including this as a little bit of a bonus because it's not really a cut weapon, but it's more like a slight possibility of the fact that Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain in Extension could have actually used actual guns. Now, for those of you who don't know, they use pseudo guns, fake guns. They take different ideas from different weapons and they mash it up into something fictional. However, this might not have been the case. Again, according to Rushi Akimoya, during the development of Ground Zeroes, a lot of weapons from Metal Gear Solid 4 were directly ported over, such as the M4, the Ames AK, even the SCAR. Now, I don't think even if the intention was to use actual weapons, that they were going to have these exact weapons in the game. Like, I doubt you would see Venom Snake running around with an M4, a SCAR, or the AK-102, I believe it is, because all of these guns would be anachronistic since the game takes place in the 80s. But who knows, it's Metal Gear, and maybe they would have had Venom Snake running around with a G36. However, I'm including this as a bonus just because this was really early in development if this was the case, and it's likely that they were just using these guns to work through the different mechanics, test certain things, and just spitball ideas. So I don't think this is an accurate portrayal of anything that they were really intending to do. Still, I figured I'd include this as a bonus because I found it interesting and odds are you will too. Now, for our last one, I'm keeping what I found to be the most interesting possibility for a cut weapon from the Metal Gear franchise. In Metal Gear Solid 5, according to trcf.com, we were supposedly going to be able to use Skullface's lever action gun. Now, it is technically usable in the one scene where you put him down. However, almost every gun we see in this game is usable, and we're able to develop it from Mother Base. This includes the rifles that the Skulls use, the weapons that the enemies use, and just other random weapons that we might see throughout the game. However, Skullface's lever action is forever out of our reach. Supposedly, we were supposed to also add this to our arsenal, and this gets my imagination going, and that's part of why, in my opinion, one of the most interesting weapons that were cut from these games, because there's a lot that we could have done with a lever action. Would it have been something that we would use as a sidearm, going along with that old western motif, riding on our horse, using a lever action to take guys down? Would we be able to upgrade this into a shotgun, or maybe a long-distance rifle? It's a very interesting gun, and it's very different from everything that's in Phantom Pain. And if the guns in Phantom Pain have an issue, or if there's anything I can criticize them for, it's that some of them start to feel a little samey. So a little bit of variety like this would have really thrown something interesting in there. Personally, I think it would have been cool if we unlocked it similarly to how you unlock the Patriot in Metal Gear Solid 3, where you beat the game or you take down the final boss and then you get their endgame weapon and it's just this absolutely broken bonus gun. But hey, who knows what they were originally intending with it. Alright, with that being said, that was 5 more cut weapons from the Metal Gear Solid series. Now, this video was particularly difficult to make. If you guys watched my other video where I talk about 5 other guns cut from the series, you'll know it's kind of hard to go through all the cut and dummied content from the Metal Gear series because it's difficult to find any traces of them. It's not as well documented as, say, Resident Evil or other more popular game series. With Metal Gear, you really have to dig to find this stuff out. So what I'm trying to say is that I hope you guys found this interesting, so all the hours I spent digging were worth it. Probably not going to be posting too many videos in the coming future because, you know, it's the holidays and I'm with family and all that. But for now, I hope this one keeps you guys entertained. I'll see you guys in the next video. This has been Bliskin, over and out.